Whew. This one's looking a little bit rough. It's the drought. It'll do that to a chlorophytum. Hey, what's up, garden friends? Jeff here. How's everybody doing? Hope you're doing well. I'm great. Remember to get the intro in. Been out here getting ready to clean up this chlorophytum here. And at the same time, one of you left a comment, Michael. Michael left a comment on a video mentioning that it'd be a good idea to take some of these little pieces from a spider plant and try them off in the shade garden next year. And I was like, funny you should say that, Michael, because I had a list going for a while and just haven't gotten around to filming it of houseplants that are cold hardy. There are several houseplants you may find at your big box stores or your local nurseries. Maybe you have too many plants inside. You can go ahead and put them out in the garden. I have a list here of plants that should be good from zone 7B all the way down to zone 4. But not all the plants are going to be hardy to zone 4. One of them's hardy to zone 4. I'm going to start with the least cold hardy. Work our way up to the most cold hardy of the plants. And really, this is also just a list of plants that I find to be surprisingly cold hardy, not just house plants that might make good perennials in your garden. Triostar stramanthe, shockingly cold hardy. I've been able to overwinter these here in zone 6B, 7A. I live right on the line with a good amount of mulch and a site that was protected where it was near some pavement. That helps keep the ground warm. And they'll come back for you, but like I said, you got to situate them properly. I know some of you who are in 7B, 8A have stuck these in the ground and then they come back for you. Same deal. Really just surprisingly cold hardy. They form, do I need to describe the growth? You can see it right here. This one isn't even that colorful because it's been getting a lot of shade. Beautiful variegated foliage, a nice purpley reddish tone on the bottoms of the foliage. They'll get, if you're having them die back to the ground, maybe 30 inches tall and form a nice wide patch. They spread really well. If they die back to the ground during the winter, then sure, it's going to take them longer to establish a nice size clump, but that's okay. They're still so beautiful. This isn't something you would expect to see in the ground coming back every year with not that much work, just some mulch. I'd say probably a good foot of mulch at least on top of them to help keep the rhizome from freezing. And you have a nice, beautiful, exotic plant coming back for you every single year. Okay, the next one, I don't have one of these. I could run out and probably grab one, but I don't feel like it. Echeveria topsy-turvy. Echeverias in general, surprisingly cold hardies. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Echeveria, they're similar in appearance to a sempervivum, kind of, in that they're a succulent with a nice rosette shape to them. So here's some sempervivums. The topsy-turvy Echeveria is one that you see around at a lot of the big box stores, just the succulents that are usually not labeled, but if you can find them labeled, the topsy-turvy has a nice grayish blue glaucous color to it, and the ends of the leaves have a slight tilt or a turn to them. These are surprisingly hardy, so I would say you should give these a try in zone 7A. It'd probably be okay. I know Plant Delight's nursery, they've been overwintering them at their nursery. They're in 7B for I think a few years. They form a nice little clump in the succulent garden. They have a nice exotic appeal to them. Maybe you already have some in the house. They haven't been doing great for you. Find a spot outside that gets a good amount of sun, maybe some afternoon shade that drains really, really well. The main key to success whenever you're overwintering succulents and cactus outside is to keep them dry during the winter time. You can just throw a box over them that has some holes cut out in the sides when it's really wet and cold if you live in a mild climate. Someplace like here, 6B, 7A, I would usually construct a wooden cube, a frame, and then put frost cloth over that so that some light can get through there, because it's going to be more of a long-term deal, keeping the moisture out from getting onto the crown of the plant and keeping the roots from getting wet too. Okay, and now this brings us back to the chlorophytum. I have had spider plants come back for me on many, many occasions when I've thrown them in the ground. Typically, it's only up against one of these walls over here where there's gravel on the ground and the wall in the background, so I think it's just like a little oven that keeps them nice and warm during the winter time. This isn't that surprising though, right? Because there are types of chlorophytums that are more cold hardy into zone 5 and even 6. That's just not as common you would think for just your regular variegated ones to do that. But they will. Again, if situated properly, they'll probably come back for you. A big thing I've noticed with them is that you gotta wait a while for them to show up, so it's not like they just pop up in the springtime. Things need to get really warm, and then they'll start to show up, and once they start to show up, they do their thing. They spread all over the place, but because you have the harsh winters, it's not like they're going to take over and eat your garden alive either, right? You have the security of a cold winter to kill them back and help keep them controlled. I have only tried this with just the plain old variegated with the orange stem Chlorophytum spider plants. There are lots of different types to choose from. And again, there are some that are already cold hardy-ish. They're not as easy to come by, but there are some that are rated to zone 7. And if it's rated to zone 7 and you're in zone 6, I'd say give it a try. It's one of those plants where it doesn't hurt to give it a try either because they're so prolific. You know, all you have to do is come in here in the springtime and snap off some of your babies from your big plants, situate them in different spots around the garden, and just see what they do. And if you have them come back in one of those spots next year, then that might be a good spot to just stick an entire plant and let them grow and fill the spot out. Okay, I cannot believe that I don't have any of these out here this year because I pulled them all up. I have a variant of these, and that's Tradescantia pallida. Now, this one right here is a hybrid, right? It's the Feelin' 40 from Proven Winners. But just your regular purple heart plants. They are really cold hardy. Again, it's going to be kind of like the spider plant. You want them situated someplace that's nice and warm during the winter time. But I have never had them not come back for me. So this year, this didn't happen. I went a little bit heavy on the impatiens, but typically there's a row of Tradescantia in the front here. The Nanooks and just the purple hearts are both the ones that I've had reliably return for me after winter time. This is a spot that's pretty exposed too. There is pavement down here, and that does help some, but this garden bed, you can't tell. It's very sloped, so it's all very exposed. It's a berm, essentially, and they're planted right on the edge in very rocky, sandy, well-drained soil. But I never mulched them. There is mulch near them from the gingers over here, and there are some sable miners that are being choked out right now in the background. Those usually get some mulch, and there's mulch over there too, so they're near a lot of mulch, but they're in the front of the bed that's totally exposed, and they always return for me. Something I've seen around the area fairly commonly, people will plant cannas with lots of Tradescantia under them, and they just happen to come back for them every single year. They're prolific, so you don't need to plant very many, and they make an excellent ground cover. It's nice and colorful, and like I said, in zone 6, I'd say it's worth a try. The main thing, I think I said this with pretty much everything, is that the soil drains really, really well. Cold and wet is the kiss of death. So well-drained soil in a nice warm microclimate, something that's going to help hold in some temperature for them. Doing that should keep them going for you for a few, well, not for a few years, for as long as you're trying, as long as that spot's nice and warm. The next one, can I even get to it? Is it back here? Aspidistra, specifically Aspidistra elatior. It's the cast iron plant. That's all it is. It's just some green leaves. Really common houseplant though. It's because they make really good houseplants. They also really cold hardy. You can stick these into the dry shade. If you're in zone 6, then expect them to die down to the ground during the winter. They won't be evergreen for the most part unless there's a lot of wind protection. So drying winter winds tend to defoliate them. But you can pop them in the ground, and over a few years they'll fill in a nice big patch of just really big, robust and shiny green leaves. And very low maintenance too. That's what's so great about a cast iron plant. And there are several to choose from. I can go back in there, it's just there's spiders everywhere. There are several to choose from that are hardy into zone 6 and zone 7. Maybe even give just a regular elatior a try into 5B. But again, the more cold your climate, then you should mulch them, right? The more mulch you should give them, just to be safe. I don't protect them here. I never have. I just let them die down to the ground. If I have a more fancy variety, then maybe I'll throw a little bit of mulch on it, but just a regular green, not usually. Oh, there's only one left. It's the one that started it all. It's the Saxifraga. It's all the way down there. I'm gonna have to squat for this entire part. That's okay. Saxifraga, stolonifera. So with these, also called strawberry begonia, by the way, you see these in hanging baskets a lot at the big box stores, maybe even at your local nurseries. They have a really great, well, trailing habit. They spread very well in the garden. There are a lot to choose from. Not all of them are cold hardy, but just your regular stolonifera should be hardy into zone 4. I think this one right here, this tag, it might even say zone 3 on this one. I'm not sure. Yeah, 3A to 9B. That's extremely cold hardy and evergreen. I don't know if they'll be evergreen all the way into zone 3, but if you're in zone 5 or 6, they should be mostly evergreen. They have beautiful foliage. This one right here is a variety that has a larger leaf on it. These leaves will get even bigger. There are lots of different color variants to choose from. They have different sized leaves. They're all about the same shape, but there are more colors to choose from. right? So that could be something fun to play around with. And maybe you already have some, just like with the chlorophytum. If you have one of these grown in the house, which wouldn't surprise me because they make an excellent houseplant, then you can just snap off some of the runners that they have, just like with those spider plants, stick those in the ground in the spring and see what they do. They will fill in an area. So this one that I planted just a few weeks ago, it's already starting to flush out. I would imagine by this time next year, I'm hoping it will have filled out this entire patch right here. If you have them in the hanging basket and you've seen it, right? You get it. You know that these guys will spread just from the way they trail. That lets you know that they're good growers. Look at all those trichomes. So beautiful. Love that nice hairy ground cover. I actually don't know what that meant. It sounded gross. And that's just what I got off the top of my head. Well, top of my head, then I wrote down, then I rambled off to y'all. There are other options, especially when you're like 7B and zone 8A. There's some calatheas that you could try, and some, well, really most of the colocaceas, maybe some of the alocaceas, 7B, 8A. But for those of us who are colder than that and have really, really long winter times, those aren't really options, but these are the ones that are the most cold hardy that I could think of. And why would you want to put your houseplants in the garden? Something I should have talked about in the intro so people would know why to be intrigued by this subject. Well, sometimes we buy too many plants, right? Fellow houseplant lovers. Eventually your house may become full and you're like, well, I don't want to get rid of it. And well, try it out in the ground. Give it a shot. You never know with the ones that I've talked about, and I'm sure there are others. Hopefully people will comment down below if there's suggestions as well for what's been surprisingly cold hardy for them. So to free up space is one option. With the spider plant and, well, really all the others, basically everything can be divided from your house plant and tried outside, right? The spider plant, abundant, lots of growth on there. That strawberry begonia, the Saxifraga, big spreader. You just cut off some of its little babies, move them out. Stramanthes, you can take cuttings from those. The Echeveria, they will pup out, and you can just take the pups and try those out, and you're not really losing anything, right? The cast iron plant is probably the only one that I can think of where sometimes they can be pricey. I usually see them for between $15 and $50. I don't know why there's such a huge price variance, but there for some reason is. So that's one where it might be something to look out for. And you can find them as a houseplant during the winter time when the nurseries are closed. You can keep it inside, enjoy it during the winter, plant it outside in the spring. Just a little something to help us get by the long periods we're going to have to go through here fairly soon where we can't be going to the nurseries and planting stuff outside, but there are things you can do to prep for spring and grab some houseplants that might be tough and you can keep them outdoors. Oh, how did I not the Chinese fan palms? They're excellent. Those are just the fan leaves that are over there. I've done entire videos on those. Some 6B, 7A, you can put those in the ground. Again, well-drained soil, a spot that has a nice microclimate sheltered from strong winter winds. I would usually just let the frost kill the foliage off on them and then cut that off and then put a good 18 inches of mulch on top of them. In the spring when things are nice and warm, temperatures are consistently over 55 into the 60s, the ground needs to be warm. Pull that mulch back, and around June-ish, depending on where you live, here around June, they flush out new leaves right from the ground. You'll never get a big trunked plant, but you'll have just some nice big shiny green palm leaves that come up for you every year. And that's fun. So if you see those around as a house plant, you might be able to give those a try in the spring. All kinds of options. But that's all I got right now. So I hope everybody's doing well. Comment down below with your suggestions, anything you've tried that you've been surprised by. That is kind of like the slash in this video. Cold hardy houseplant slash plants that I'm just surprised at how cold hardy they are. That's a topic that always fascinates me. Things that you've tried you didn't think would survive the winter and they did. All right, I hope everybody's doing well, having a great day, great life, and everything's just going absolutely beautifully for you. And of course, as always, and most importantly, everybody, keep on growing. Bye bye.